Kind of nerdy and fun, and I like being nerdy and fun. Well, I am nerdy. I don't know if I'm fun. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Southdown Garage. We're back working on the Touareg. Well, we're gonna do a couple videos on a Touareg with a 3-liter diesel, starting with fuel system. What happened? Well, the first time was a coolant leak, and that I'm gonna go over later. What we're gonna go over today is a CP4 pump failure, and you're all gonna be like, oh, you should have like blah, 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 blah. Well, CP4 pump failures happen because of low sulfur diesel, and these things do not handle low sulfur diesel well. They also have zero margin of error for poor fuel, which a lot of people that have these issues, they have poor fuel. So if your pump's blowing up, it's because the fuel that you're putting in it is trash garbage. So I always recommend using a fuel additive, and I use Standardine fuel system cleaner. No, they are not sponsoring this video, but if you do work at Standardine, hit me up. I use that stuff. I always put it in my Volkswagen to prolong the life of my Volkswagen fuel system. However, at some point I'm also going to have to do this to mine, so let's dig into this and see what it's like working on the V6 diesel for the Touareg. One thing to mention is I'm working with Darkside Development on creating bracket because they're no longer available from Volkswagen, so that's what we're going to do first. I'm just going to show you the fuel system apart, and then we're going to go through what we need to do to make sure everything fits, because I don't know, it's kind of nerdy and fun, and I like being nerdy and fun. Well, I am nerdy. I don't know if I'm fun. Anyway, here's your CP4 fuel pump. This one is kaput, and what we have to do is we have to get pictures of everything going over, send them to these guys so they can make a product for us that we can put in here. We can swap a CP3 pump over. We'll tune it for the CP4 swap to CP3. First off, off this pump, so this line here, I'm just gonna lightly tighten them up. I'm not really gonna try fully. So the line goes up and over the intake at the back, and then this one here runs over to the back of this rail. Back side here, I'll just show you quick. So this is running in the back. So these are the fuel lines back on the vehicle. What you're seeing here is the fuel lines running up from the one side of the pump. This one runs from the back to the other fuel rail. We have to send all this stuff out and get cleaned, unfortunately, because we have metal here. When we pulled out the filter, we saw some metal shavings in the top, and then when we pulled this relief valve out, we also saw all the metal bits in there. So we know she's said no more, I'm done. Now that we know where the lines run, we can take a look at what it looks like with the intake on. Usually this is where you're gonna have this part here, so you have the bracket that sits like that to protect the line, and then the intake can go on. So I have no idea what you guys saw or you didn't see in the last portion where I took the intake off the other side. There's a lot of bolts in here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take off these connectors here. We're gonna move this out of the way, might even disconnect it. And then we're gonna take these 2 bolts off the top of this rear piece here, which I will show you a little video of while we do this. Before I take this off, I'm gonna pop this rear bracket off. I'll show you in a sec here. Right in behind here, there's your little bracket for butterfly valves in the intake. Oh yeah, you can. Oh, there we go. Everything is an acronym. One of the most fun things I've done to date is pulling out this cooler. Now, this cooler is leaking, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna install a kit that doesn't need this anymore. So what comes in this kit? That's an excellent question, I'm glad you asked. What comes in the kit? We have this nice little Y pipe that takes the flow of coolant that would normally go to this EGR cooler and valve and routes it elsewhere. We also come with a couple of block off plates. Of course, the biggest thing that you need is this little pipe here. Now what that does is it acts like the little pipe here on your EGR cooler that goes into the block. Now, one thing that you absolutely need to understand about this is the O-ring does not come with the kit. So if you're like me and you're not wanting to roll the dice, you're gonna have to pick up this O-ring from Volkswagen. So how did we get this out, you ask? Kurt, that seems like an awful job. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest here. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's not a 10, it's not a 1, it's somewhere in the middle. The most annoying part is trying to pry everything up, because this O-ring sits in the body of the head, and it's very fun. I believe it's the head. It actually might be the block, so don't quote me on that. It's probably the block, to be honest. So you have the 2 bolts on the one end, you have the 2 bolts on the other end that go into a plastic housing. You undo that and you sit there and you wiggle and you wiggle and you wiggle. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. Until you're able to get this out finally. And now what are you faced with? Of course, you have to reroute hoses, including this little piggy right here. So in the kit, we did get this larger size diameter hose, but we're gonna find out exactly how much you need when you order your own kit so that you can prevent guessing like I did. Let's go into showing you how fun it is to take it out, and then we can go into how fun it's gonna be putting it back together without this in here. Goodbye. Fa la 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 la. That's gonna go to its new home on eBay, slightly used. Just kidding. Nobody's gonna sell that. Let's take a look at what we've got here. We're on putting this back together, and one of the things that we should go over is when you're in this circumstance, you want to know what to do. So just to go over a couple things, we have the intake on the one side back on. We have the motor for the intake flaps. I can't remember what those are called for whatever reason at this very moment. That's fine, not a big deal. We have the hose and delete into where the EGR cooler sat in the vehicle. We have the block off plates. I used the wrong length of bolts, so when I put the intake together, I had to use the original bolts, and I'll show you what I did. So here's the original intake. Now what you can see here is there's 2 pieces that separate, and we have the factory bolts in here, so we're gonna still have the pipe that goes down, around, and underneath. However, the block off plate is in the middle, so that way no intake there won't be any boost leaks or nothing like that. That'll be all good. We can go ahead and put this back together. The next thing we have to do is we have to route the hoses so that we can get the cooling system back together and ready to go. The best thing about taking all this stuff off is remembering how it went together the first time, because that is always the most fun. So I'm just gonna go ahead and we're gonna throw the other intake back in. Good way to figure out if your intake is on the right side or not before you fight putting it back in is the 2 bolts here. Boom, boom. These bolt holes, they go into the center, and so when you're putting this back together, you can easily do that. Now, if you're looking for torque specs, because we're not psychos, we actually care about doing this properly. It's more about not doing this twice. I can tell you from experience, if you don't spend the time now, you will spend it later. You just won't appreciate it later. So this is 9 Newton meters, which is technically about 8 foot-pounds, just in case you're wondering, give or take. You don't want to go any higher than that because this is plastic, this will crack. And then if you think being up creek without a paddle is fun, you will really enjoy this part. So maybe I will set you guys up over to the left of my shoulder here and we'll show going back in, because this should all be interesting and painful for me, because I have to try to remember how stuff went together last week when I took it apart, and then I was waiting for a stinking O-ring forever. So learn from me, everyone. Know what parts you need before you do this job so you aren't caught off guard. We did get a 5/16, I think it was, 5/16 fuel hose to use that for the bypass hose, so you will need that. I just basically got about 2 feet. You definitely don't need this much to do that. As you can see here, it's not that much at all. So let's set you up over my shoulder here and you can watch me work just like my boss likes to. So we picked up this machine on Amazon. We've heated it up to 60 degrees. Decided to drop down to 56, I don't care. So we're gonna go ahead and throw this stuff in here. Why are we doing that? Well, a lot of this stuff is expensive. The fuel rails, the sensors in the fuel rails, we're gonna try to clean it up. We're gonna try to save the customer some money, because this is a very expensive job, especially to the point where we are now. I'm not going to go into how much it is. It's definitely more money than you would expect. So let's get into this. Let's throw these parts in here and then we can pull everything out once they're all cleaned. If you look in here, you can see all the parts and everything else are looking smoky like. So we're just going to throw, yes, I'm going to do this for every single one. I'm going to count. We guesstimated on how big we're going to need a unit, so let's hope for the best, because we'll turn it on and what it's going to do is it's going to use vibrations to work out all the crap and stuff. Boy, am I scientific. You better believe it. Good thing I'm wearing gloves, because I don't know, like, it's supposed to be environmentally friendly. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the lid back on, we're going to turn on, and we're going to let that be for a little bit. While it does its job, we're going to head back over and we're going to take care of everything else. We're only leaving this in here for an hour. We're going to want to make sure it's good and clean. Once that's done, we can literally just shut everything off and pull everything out. It should be as clean as a whistle. So we took the intake off. There's not really much to that. It's literally like a dozen bolts to get that thing off. But the interesting part, this is where things got wild. So like, we have a new return hose line because, I mean, gosh dang it, if you're gonna be a psycho and you're gonna spend all this money, you're not gonna change stuff like that, something is wrong with you. So what we did is we ended up pulling out this fuel pump relief valve, and we saw the metal that was in here. All right, in the background we have noises happening, but now this is what we found. When we pulled the relief valve out, where is it? Sorry, I'm brain farting on that. I will put the description right here. When we pulled that out, this is what we found in here, but that wasn't the first thing. We actually took this cover off, and I'll go do that right now. Keys up, go. So I've had to put this back together because I've had to move it in and out of my shop quite a few times, but that's what I saw on top of the filter, and that's when we moved to the relief valve, and that's what happened next. Now, just because your vehicle doesn't start, okay, what happened when the vehicle did this? It was started to lose power, it did not smoke, it lost power. There's a method to my madness here, and then everything cut out, and that's what happened. So when that happens, the fuel pump just basically sends metal everywhere. So like the lines that we have coming off here, we've cleaned all of those out. We've blasted them out with brake clean. There wasn't any metal in it. However, when we set the injectors in to get tested, every single one came back and they were leaking. And once you have leaking injectors, it's over for you. So we're gonna start tearing into this, take this pump off, and we're gonna get ready for the gorgeous jewelry that was sent over to us from Darkside Development. Well, the noise machine has stopped, so let's pull these out, shall we? Freeze. 101 bolts later. Ta-da! The one sad thing is that's going to be right down on the bottom. We're going to take this off, this cranky thing off, and then we're going to do it. That's it. You got it. So in order to get this pulley off, you need a tool that looks like this. It's got some cutouts on either side here. You can get it from Darkside Development, and we can go ahead and hook it up. We left the original bolt in there, and it just bang, it was like a violent pop sound. So with that off, now we can go ahead and finally remove this pulley. Now, you are probably going to destroy this bolt, and it's okay because there's a new one in the kit. Now we just have to take off these last remaining bolts, and we can slide this cover off. Anything bad that happens to their trucks. So what we have is a T setup like this. So basically you have the out port here. So there's an O-ring on here and then a valve that goes over it. So what we did is we took a scan of the original part and just made a T, because what was happening is this hose right here was going to run into the EGR hose coming through here, plus it was going to push up hard against here, and obviously we can't have that, so we're just going to disconnect all this because it's not going there, because, well, we don't need it. It's going to be... Yep. So, here we go. Melt in the valley of the shadow of depths. So that means we can put back this steel piece, which also helps because it will connect to the factory setup. Okay, so we've got the bypass in. It's all set up now. What we have to do is go ahead and start sliding the intake in. We did take off the EGR line because it was coming into contact with the hose. I don't know if that's going to make a difference now. I don't know if we can move it or what we can do. Let's see, why not? Well, I guess actually I should probably I just want to see if this thermostat works. I'm not 100% sure if it will. Yeah, let's put this cover back on first. That's gonna... So let's go and place this in there. I would say I'm practically a genius sometimes, but I don't want to be like that guy and just think that I'm so amazing, but I really am. Like, I mean, humility is my strong point, let's be honest. I'm just phenomenally good at being good. You know what I mean? Like, it's a curse, really. I'm trying to figure out if I should have put a washer behind there. That's okay. You know what? You worry too much. As one mechanic used to say all the time, you worry too much. You know what? Anybody that says that to you, they're living a pretty good life, let's be honest, because they don't let stuff get to them. However, you know what, squirrel? One day I'm going to kick you out of here. So that is on. We'll bolt this on. So we did have to clearance the inside of here with a grinder. That was fun. Make sure that we have all the metal out of the system. We actually moved both the pump on that side, and this also has a pump on this side. However, it's more of a transfer pump. It transfers fuel from this side of the tank to that side of the tank. So when we were cleaning it out, it was aerating a bit because it was not transferring the fuel over. Not a big issue. Now that we have everything cleaned out, we're going to go ahead and add about 20 liters of fresh diesel fuel. And then what we're going to do is turn the ignition on with the new diesel. I've got a hose hooked up to the return, and we're going to dump whatever is coming back in into the bucket. And then we're going to go ahead and check the front for leaks. Once we've confirmed we have no leaks, all that other stuff, we can go ahead and scan the vehicle so I can send the file off to TuneZilla. They can adapt the file to the CP3 pump. It's a $50 upgrade once you've already bought a tune, so it's not a big deal. But it's a lot of work to go through all this stuff when your pump blows up. And before I was an advocate that this was a bunch of hokey, and after seeing this, I mean, this is 215,000 kilometers, and a lot of guys in the States sometimes are getting up to 250,000 miles with no issues. But at the end of the day, it's a wear item, it's aluminum, and this is how bad it can get. If you were paying someone to do this, this would be well over $10,000 to do all of this work. It would just absolutely ruin your wallet and your day. So maybe not everyone is going to have this failure, but if you do, it's not going to be a fun day, week, month, or year for that matter. And you might say, Kurt, just throw it in the garbage if it does that. To be honest with you, right now with the current situation, the way vehicle costs and prices are, it was cheaper to repair this than it was to buy a new vehicle. And you know what? I'm okay with continuing to run a vehicle that's in good service and it's working well. Why not? So now that we're done all this and I've done my somewhat rant, we're going to switch the vehicle on for the first time, drain the fuel out of the return, and then we should be able to tighten everything up and fire it up, which would be lovely. We had a little mistake. So apparently I did not tighten up one of the return lines here, so it sprung a slight leak. As you can see there, it's coming out by the tire. No big deal, just the fuel that I put in there. At least we know it's flushing through the system properly. Now we can try again and see if we have more leaks. And maybe I'll just show you guys, maybe we'll just watch up front because apparently that's more interesting. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to try to fire this thing up. Yeah, baby. Oh, we got a little leak. We're gonna turn it off. It runs. Holy Dinah. Yeah! Alright, now that I have done that, let's try it again and see if it leaks still. Well, this is some great news. I've been working on this project for a while. It's a high pressure pump conversion, HP. This is a high pressure pump conversion, the CP4 from the CP3. The CP3 blew up, so we had to do a bunch of stuff, drain all the fuel out of this sucker and wipe it all down in the tank. And now let's go ahead and fire it up. Woo! Get you some of these. All right, now any fuel leaking? No fuel leaking there. No fuel leaking there. It's running. Life is good. Okay, I gotta shut it off. There's no coolant in the system. So that's it. This thing is running. When the part shows up for this cooling system, I need a thermostat right in here for the EGR cooler that leaked and failed and we had to bypass. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to do stuff like that. But hey, now you guys know the Touareg is running. Yes, this thing sounds amazing. Booyah, Grandma! Did you see any of the footage from like me showing the blow up?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'll have to look for it. But when I pulled it apart, originally this fuel filter had metal shavings on top, and that's what led me to checking out the pump and then going, oh dear, because I pulled the pressure switch off the side of the pump. I guess it's technically a relief valve. It was full of metal. That's obviously something you don't want in your fuel system. And when you see metal beyond your filter, then you know you've had catastrophic failure sometime, somewhere. Not sometime, somewhere. So what happened was it filled this pump here. So we had to replace everything. We had to replace that pump. We had to replace a bunch of the lines here because they got filled with metal. It killed every single injector. It absolutely a ton of money. If you guys are gonna do this job because you have a higher mileage TDI, I would highly recommend it, because at the very least you're gonna be looking at a $7,000 repair, and it could be as high as 20, depending on how much stuff it ruins. So it really depends on what you're willing to risk at this point. The reason these pumps fail is because they're full of aluminum. They're all aluminum inside. The BMW pump is what we put in here. CP3 is what they call it, is not aluminum. It's fully steel, and it does not suffer from the same challenges that the CP4 pump has had. And it does not just stay with Volkswagen or Audi or Porsche. It basically goes across any field of vehicles, diesel, that run the CP4 pumps. They are just not meant for the low sulfur diesel, and they will self-destruct.
Cool.
So we're just gonna take this filter off. Now the fun part is you want to make sure that you don't have any electrical things open, like your fuse box. Let's say I absolutely did not have that open. I took it off last time. And these filters can sometimes try to fight you a little bit. And then you pull them out, and then fuel goes places you don't want fuel to go. Such is life. Oh, see, now we're gonna have to pull some of that out. That's good. That means fuel is getting in there.
So it's a good thing?
Yeah.
So is this what's the item in question that you're talking about specifically?
It blew up?
Yeah.
See all the metal around here and all the metal around the inside of here? This is also locked up, so that's neat. Technically, it would be a bit of work to turn this, but right now all that metal is from the inside of here, and technically I could pull it apart if we really want to and take a look at the insides to see what happens when these pumps blow up. If that's what we want to do, you'll see that very shortly. I'm all for showing people what happens when things fail because we want to stop it from happening, bottom line. Unfortunately, it is not a cheap option to upgrade these from the CP4s, which are these, to the CP3, which is in there.
It's underneath here?
It is underneath here. So basically you can see the front of the pulley. You can see this beautiful billet piece here that was designed by Darkside Development. This is the first plate that was made for the vehicles, and I want to thank those guys for making an option for the market, because when it comes to keeping your diesel alive, nowadays, everyone's running away from diesels. We're getting out of the market because there's so much bad publicity surrounding diesels. But at the end of the day, I talked to somebody today who has a brand new Prius Prime RAV4 hybrid, and they get less fuel economy than you would get a Jetta to run with diesel. So something to keep in mind, even though we have the hybrid options, as long as we can keep our clean diesels running for a long time, we can keep them on the road, and you're still keeping pollution out of the atmosphere.
It's economically sound.
You make the EPA happy. Well, we have everything in, and it started. So until next time, have a wonderful day, take care, and we'll see you on another episode of South Down Garage. Bye for now!